Hey, this is Steve for CollectorMania. I'm here doing a brew preview for Unesh Criosphinx Sovereign. Quite a mouthful that one is. It's 4 colorless, 2 blue, legendary creature Sphinx, of course. Flying, it says Sphinx spells cost 2 colorless less, so I'm not sure if there's any artifact Sphinx spells or anything like that. We'll have to look that up. I didn't even think about that. So it doesn't say Sphinx creatures. Anyway, I'm in a tangent. His secondary ability is whenever Unesh, Criosphinx Sovereign, or another Sphinx enters the battlefield, sorry my thing's a little fuzzy here, under your control, reveal the top 4 cards of your library, and then split them into 2 piles, one goes into your hand, the other goes in the graveyard. So kind of like a smaller Fact or Fiction. Really, really good ability, especially on, Sphinx. It just makes sense. It's like a riddle, Once again, as we talked about with Djeru, I really wish this would have been more than one color. Esper would have been amazing. Blue-white would have even been great, but here we are with what we got. Mono blue's not terrible. There's definitely a ton of tools to work with. As far as building like tribal sphinxes, I don't think there's quite enough. I mean, unless you went like a really control-heavy route and most of your deck was spells, but I mean that's kind of missing the point of the deck, really. So anyway, with that, there are obviously a few highlight Sphinxes that we want to talk about. First of all, Consecrated Sphinx. Like, this card is stupid good. It's been in every Commander deck since it was probably printed. It's always been the menace of the table. It's like the Prophet of Criosphinx of drawing cards. I mean, it's just a menace. Usually the person that has it, you're just after them pretty much the entire game. And most of the time, if it's out for more than a turn cycle, they're going to win. There's not really a whole lot of things to come back from, like, drawing 12 cards. It's really, really good. 4/6 flyer. Having it be able to cast a little bit earlier, even though your commander actually comes down at 6, so it's not really that huge of a benefit. And that's the other part that I have to argue about this card, is that if it was going to have an ability that made your Sphinxes cost a little bit less, I think it itself should cost a little less. Maybe 4. Maybe like bring its power down to like a 2/3 or something like that, something smaller, 3/3 even, and then maybe make its second ability like smaller, and then make it so you can actually get some of those bigger Sphinxes out faster. I understand what they were going for, but it's kind of missing the point. Because I mean, even if you look at it, some of the bigger Sphinxes that we're even talking about, well, Prognostic Sphinx is the next one up on the list. Really, really good card. Ability to scry 3, which might help you actually with the Unesh ability, stuff like that. But what I'm getting at is like the Sphinx Ambassador, stuff like that. Like, that card costs 7. It has a ridiculous ability when it deals combat damage to somebody. You can actually go find a card in their library and all kinds of crazy stuff. That guy costing 7, like, you're going to play him on the next turn anyway, so it's like, what is the benefit there besides the Fact or Fiction? So, anyway, kind of a miss in my opinion. Still kind of cool. Sphinx of the Final Word is another one that I kind of, think of right away. Going back to what I was talking about, you can build like a really heavy kind of like tribal or control deck with this, just having a lot of spells and then having like this guy to protect your instant sorceries from being cast, stuff like that. Sphinx of Athun is another really good example with a little bit of cost or down cost on that. And then Windrider Sphinx is another one as well. This I feel like synergizes a lot with the deck because obviously you're going to have a lot of like flying creatures swinging in there, drawing you cards, stuff like that. Sphinx of Lost Truths, another really good one. I mean, there's a million of them. Well, not a million. There's about 13, as has already been stated. And that, again, is the problem with going tribal with this. There's just not enough. If it would have been blue-white once again or something like that, maybe we would have had some more room to work with. So anyway, off of the tribal theme, we've kind of got... The way that I look at it is it's kind of a graveyard deck, too, which is kind of funny in mono blue, but if you really think about it, I mean, you've got things like Jace Vryn's Prodigy. Like, this guy, benefits from things being in the graveyard, and then if he flips over, he can actually cast spells from your graveyard. So really, really cool. Nice little Planeswalker to add in there. Nice way to get things that you want in the graveyard out there, of course. Archaeomancer is another really good example of this. Snapcaster Mage is a really, really good example of this. And along the same lines, we've got like Torrential Gearhole, stuff like that, some of the newer cards. Anything that can essentially, once again, grab like an instant or sorcery and then just recast it or put it back in your hand. Like extra turn spells would be great in a deck like this, stuff like that. Speaking of that, we've got things like Time Spiral, anything that can then take your graveyard, shuffle it back into your library. That way you can just keep Fact or Fictioning until you find what you need. And then I kind of went a little bit a different route almost too with like Delve. Like if you think about it, you're going to have a ton of stuff in your graveyard. Like Dig Through Time is a great spell to throw on something like this. Dig Through Time, Treasure Cruise is another good example of this, and even like Temporal Trespass. Like that card is ridiculous, and it's almost difficult in a lot of control decks to get enough cards in your deck unless you're playing like a graveyard strategy. And this almost just benefits from that because you're going to be throwing things in your graveyard. Along the same lines, we've got like Commit to Memory, so something that can be cast from your graveyard, or anything with like flashback, like Deep Analysis, or what's the blue one from Innistrad? I can't remember it. It's like 2 and you draw a card, and then in your graveyard. Huh?
Think Twice?
Think Twice. Things like that. Just really cool, interesting spells. And then, as a kind of like a side note on this one, you can definitely think about putting them in like a Sphinx tribal deck. So like Espiri is a really good example of this. I know my wife tried to build a tribal Sphinx's deck a long time ago. Even then there wasn't enough, and there probably still isn't. But blue-white definitely opens up a lot more doors. And then if you go even beyond that to like Shroom. I know Shroom is mainly artifact based, but I've seen a few people just run it as their tribal commander just because it is a Sphinx. So, I mean, that's an option. And then you get access to like spells like Sphinx's Revelation, stuff like that. You know, a little bit more, I don't know, range essentially. So, anyway, that's what we looked at for Unesh. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Check out pretty much I think we're doing one more of these, right, with Razaketh. And we will see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.